Okay, we can begin. I'm Bruce Shapiro. I'm Executive Director of the Dart Center for Journalism and Trauma here at the Columbia School of Journalism. Welcome on behalf of both the Dart Center and Columbia. The Dart Center is a Idea Lab resource center networking mechanism for journalists as well as clinicians and scholars and others concerned with news coverage of violence around the world. Everything from street crime and family violence up to war crime and human rights. I'll talk more about the Dart Center in a few minutes. We're here tonight, though, for a conversation and a celebration. A conversation with Robert Jay Lifton, psychiatrist, public intellectual, historian, activist, and a celebration of his wonderful and beautiful new memoir, Witness to an Extreme Century. This event is co-sponsored by the Dart Center, but also by The Nation magazine. And I would like to bring up Victor Navasky, the editor emeritus of The Nation and a friend and mentor to many people in this room, to give a welcome on behalf of The Nation and say whatever he wants to say.
Hi. What I want to say is, The Nation has had thousands of contributors over the years, and there are only a handful to whom one looks to put the whole world in perspective and for moral guidance. And you're lucky this evening to have Robert J. Lifton here, it seems to me. But I'll tell you why I think you're lucky, but I also want to give you a warning, and I'd just take a minute or so. It seems to me you're lucky because he has, as a psychohistorian, a unique perspective on history, because he deals with great subjects. If you look at these books here, I haven't inspected all of them, but among his subjects are the Nazi doctors and medical killing, the nuclear threat, the psychology of genocide, the survivors of Hiroshima, capital punishment. These are huge subjects that hang over all of us and everybody out there. So my warning is that Robert J. Lifton, to me, is the ultimate geographer of moral responsibility, and it is impossible to listen to him talk without getting a sense of the moral dimensions of what you do. And those of you who are students here, it seems to me that you can't listen to him without understanding that your job is not merely to report on the moral responsibility of others, but to behave in a morally responsible way yourselves. So it's an honor, a pleasure to be part of this, and Bob, I can't wait to hear you, so thank you.
I'm just going to say, well, first of all, thank you, Victor. I'm going to say a few more words of introduction, both about Robert, but also about this evening. First, some housekeeping. First of all, as you can see, this event is being videotaped for eventual broadcast by C-SPAN. It is also being audio taped by the Journalism School and will be posted on the Dart Center's website, www.dartcenter.org. Because we're doing this for C-SPAN, I have two important messages. First of all, after a bit of a conversation, we'll do Q&A, and when we do, please line up at the two microphones here. If you are physically challenged, we also have a wireless portable mic, but the easier thing for the rest of us is to use these two mics here. Also, if you have a cell phone, since we're being taped for TV, please make double sure to turn it to silent or off, or some other state in which it won't bother anybody else in the room. If you are a tweeter, there is a Twitter hashtag for tonight's event, #CJDart. There are, as you have already seen, refreshments in the back. Please avail yourself of them freely. but quietly as the talk is going on. A Dart Center announcement for journalists here. On October 22nd and 23rd, we are sponsoring a workshop for journalists on covering intimate partner violence, teenage relationship violence, family violence. This is funded by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. It will be here at the Journalism School, and if you or a colleague know someone who's interested, by all means go to www.dartcenter.org and apply for it. The deadline is September 26th. Dart Center swag, there is some stuff in the back. There are pamphlets. There are stress balls, official Dart Center stress balls, which just arrived today. Please take one. There are also on your chairs these cards. These are donation cards. If you are interested in supporting the work of the Dart Center, improving journalists' coverage of violence, encouraging a deepening of the craft of reporting on violence, both here in the U.S. and around the world, support our work. You can also donate online at www.dartcenter.org. Bathrooms. There are 2 restrooms on this floor. Halfway down the hall is a unisex restroom. All the way down the hall is a women's room. If you would like a segregated male restroom, you will need to go down to the basement. But the unisex restroom should work fine. And finally, I want to thank a few people. I want to thank very much my friends and colleagues at The Nation for co-sponsoring this, including Victor and editor Katrina Vanden Heuvel, associate publisher Peter Rothberg, who put that together. C-SPAN for recording this and putting it on BookTV at some point in the not-too-distant future. And the Columbia Bookstore, which is in the back with copies of Witness to an Extreme Century, which Robert J. Lifton will be happy to sign later in the evening. And of course, my wonderful colleagues at the Dart Center for Journalism and Trauma, who have put this evening together. I don't want to take too much time, but I do feel I need to make a few words of introduction and build on Victor's very apt description of Robert as the arbiter of a kind of moral universe. It may be an interesting question why a journalism organization based at a journalism school is sponsoring a talk with a psychiatrist. I have to say, when I read Witness to an Extreme Century, one of the things I learned is that, Robert, you were briefly a journalist in college, though you violated the ethical code profoundly by changing from covering the tennis team to playing on the tennis team, and that's it. That was my
advocacy.
The end of a promising career in journalism. But also, and really, because so much of what we chart as journalists in the world today, whether it is war or terrorism, the perpetration of violence, survivors of violence, torture, all of these actions, are on terrain that Robert J. Lifton was there first on. At the Dart Center, I spent a lot of time talking with friends and colleagues, journalists, clinicians, researchers, who have dealt with these issues, and one issue after another you trip over, encounter, face down, or are in dialogue with the work of Robert J. Lifton, who has enabled us to understand the nature of the survivor's encounter with death, the nature of perpetrators' moral universe, and how those all interact, both for individuals and for societies. It's work that began in the summer of 1953, as the book tells us, when a young psychiatrist who'd been in the Air Force heard about repatriated U.S. POWs from Korea who had been through what the popular press was calling brainwashing, thought reform, and he conducted the first study of POWs and thought reform, and that led to a persistent engagement with those issues and started him as well down a road that led to the first significant studies of Hiroshima survivors, of Vietnam veterans, of religious cults of Nazi doctors that shaped our understanding of the impact